Morning. Welcome to the workshop which has been organised between the UK Pharmacogenetic Stratified Medicine Network and NHS Innovation. So my name is Munir Mohammed. I chair the UK network, and I have done so for the last 5 or 6 years. And the idea behind the network is to really get people together from different areas, academia, healthcare, industry, regulators, and interact in the area of personalised or stratified medicine. It's a very complicated area, and there's no one particular stakeholder that can accomplish all the aims and goals of personalised or stratified medicine, and we really do need to work together. And what we have been doing over the last few years is really working with important stakeholders to develop joint workshops and get position papers out of that. So, for example, we worked with the Academy of Medical Sciences. Hi there. And produced a nice report, and Libby can tell you about that report on health economics of stratified medicine. We worked with MHRA, we worked with NHS England, and various other organisations, and now with NHS Innovations. So we decided to run this workshop when I met Tony at a conference in Liverpool, and it's apt that we are holding it in Liverpool again. So the idea behind this is that, and I know what Tony does in terms of innovations, and I read his paper, and he says innovation, the definition of innovation, and you may say that, so I'm sorry to use this anyway, but I think it's a very great definition, is invention, diffusion, and adoption. Invention, adoption, and diffusion, right, in that order. And I think that's a great sort of, definition, and that's exactly what's needed for personalised or stratified medicine. We are all very good at invention, but actually very few examples of how stratified or personalised medicine has been adopted and diffused into the NHS. And we really need to learn more about that and have the kind of entrepreneurs, and I'm glad to see the young entrepreneurs are here as well, who will help us in terms of getting this adopted into the NHS. So the idea behind this is to have some talks this morning, with some questions afterwards, and then we've got 3 breakout groups in the afternoon, and we come back, and then the breakout groups can report. And the ideal aim of such a workshop is to get a position paper, which may be published in a peer-reviewed journal, or it may end up as a report on a website for wider dissemination. We also tend to video the talks, and hopefully that's okay with the speakers. They've been asked beforehand, etc. So it's important, and we get lots of people visiting our website to be able to listen to these talks. So I think this is a very good way of disseminating as well. So I'm going to sort of hand over to Tony Young, who is going to talk, as I said, he's co-organizer for this workshop, and he's going to tell us what exactly innovation is and developing it.
So I thought I'd start with telling you about who I am and what I've done and why I'm here, and how do you go from being an Essex boy, born and bred, to the only clinician on the planet that's been put in a leadership role for a whole nation's healthcare innovation, which I still can't believe. I think one day they'll find me out and get rid of me, but they haven't discovered it yet. Born and raised in the county of Essex, and went to UCL Medical School, where I did my undergrad training and then my PhD in between being an SHO and a registrar, and I invented a ray gun. So, of course, I went to the Ministry of Defence, who funded a PhD in impulse magnetic field technology. So I have a PhD in neurophysiology and high voltage physics. I know, but it was a great invention, and I've always invented things and done that. But it was during my PhD at UCL that I started my first company. Since then, I've done 4 startups, raised about £5 million of private sector funds to drive those forward. And my first company is just there in the corner, which was ScopeGuard, which was I was a urologist. I wanted to do outpatient flexible cystoscopy. So I invented a sterile sheath for covering endoscopes that wasn't available previously, so we could solve that problem. But my university wouldn't help me take that forward. The NHS, I was working part-time to bootstrap my idea during my PhD, wouldn't help me. Banks, venture capitalists, angel investors wouldn't help me. So I had a simple choice of either giving up or taking a risk. So at about the age of 30, I remortgaged my house, put £150,000 of it in my first company, and then told my wife what I'd done. So we're still married 17 years later, and I think the lesson has been she can't afford to leave me. So at that point, but she knew I did, before I spent the money, I told her what I'd put into the company. I could have reversed it, in fairness. But she knew I was passionate about it. And as I said, since I've done 4 startups, and the largest raise I've done for one of the companies was 2.5 million. And I've learned an enormous amount of commercial lessons along the way, things I were never taught at university, at medical school, that I had to learn that have been invaluable to me in developing myself. Then I went to for my consultant, trained at Guy's. Then for my consultant job, thought I'd end up in a noble academic institution with a PhD in neurophysiology and an entrepreneur as well. Went to one of our most ancient universities, who were horrified at my innovation and enterprise experience, but thought clinically I was a very good fit, and said if I was prepared to give up innovation and enterprise, that was the place for me. At which point I just said, you're kidding. My wife will leave me, I'll lose my house to come and be a jobbing urologist in this place. So we parted company, and the next job that came up was in Southend-on-Sea, and I was never going back to Essex. And chief exec put his arm around me and said, Tony, come and show us how to do innovation and enterprise. So 10 years ago, I started as a consultant surgeon at Southend, spun out 2 companies for the hospital, and it was a couple of years later I met the Vice-Chancellor at Anglo-Ruskin University, then Mike Thorne, and we both wanted to change the healthcare of everyone on our planet. We both wanted to do something that could impact the global population. Long story short was, he said, let's come up with all the translational infrastructure you need to make anyone from anywhere across the planet could come to us with their idea and we can make it happen. So we didn't have any science parks in Essex, so we set up a view to build the MedTech campus, which was going to be 3 connected science parks. I was going to have to raise £500 million, secure 120 acres of land, build out 2 million square feet of science park space, create 12,500 new jobs in the county, turn over £1.3 billion, and take the UK from trade deficit into trade surplus in the medtech sector. And I was seconded to ARU for 1 day a week. And everyone said, it's impossible, you're never going to achieve that. And I said, never going to achieve what? And they said, well, when has a boy from Essex who went to UCL ever changed the lives of everyone on our planet? Because that's what you want to do. And that's when I said, 150 years ago, there was an Essex boy who went to UCL, who I would argue changes the lives of everyone on our planet every day, and his name was Joseph Lister. And I would argue his discoveries in antisepsis impact people today as they did when he first made those discoveries. So I'm not in the same category as Lister, let's be clear, but you can be anyone from anywhere, and you can make a difference, particularly in the modern world with digitalization and everything that's going on. So why did we stop dreaming in this country? When did we stop saying we can change the healthcare, not just of our population, but impact everyone? So it was 3 years ago that Sir Bruce Keogh approached me. I still can't believe that he did, and said, would you come and be the National Clinical Director, now National Clinical Lead for Innovation for the Health Service in England, where my job is to help address the inequality in gender and get excellence across the board, grow the size of the UK life science economy, advise NHS England and its senior leaders and board, advise the Department of Health, other government ministries, public sector bodies and other organisations, companies small, medium and large from this country and globally, and increasingly foreign governments who come to us to say, you're the largest unified healthcare system on the planet, we're trying to reorganise, what are you doing, what can we learn from you, what can you learn from us? So for a plumber from Essex to have a job like that, it's amazing. So that's sort of me and what I do and how I got here. NHS England, you know, it is the biggest unified healthcare system on our planet. Just over 54 million people, and we spend 110 billion a year, 154 acute trusts and just under 8,000 GP practices. 5th largest employer on the planet with 1.3 million people, see 1 million patients every 36 hours. 75 million outpatients, 23 million emergency room visits, 16 million inpatients. Wow. But the key challenge we face is that one in the middle, which is average life expectancy. When the health service was founded in 1948, 65. Now it's 82 for men and 80 for men and just getting up to 82 for women. So is the system we designed in 1948 fit for purpose today? So the problems we faced in 1948 were heart attacks, stroke, infectious diseases and cancer. We've all made large inroads into those. So we vaccinate for infectious diseases now. For heart attacks, we stent with advanced pharmacology, cancer, advanced chemotherapy regimes. In fact, now in the United States, the latest prostate cancer data, when you look at that, I think there were 120,000 men diagnosed with prostate cancer last year and just 20,000 deaths. So people are being diagnosed and living longer and longer with their care and with their conditions. But the system we designed around acute care and hospitals was designed for the challenges we faced 70 or 80 years ago. But now 70% of our budget goes on chronic conditions and diseases. So do we need to blow all our hospitals up and start again? So this is a picture, not of an NHS hospital being blown up, because I couldn't find one of those. This is Gotham General in the Dark Knight series. I should say my slides got approved by NHS England. I couldn't believe they let that one through, but there we are. You can slip things through occasionally. But the point is, would we design the current system we have if we were starting from here? And if we're going to think about personalised medicine, how is that going to fit in and relate to that as we move forward? So a couple of years ago, the NHS came out with our view, our 5-year forward view of how we could address the challenges we face of moving from addressing the issues we currently have. You'll all have heard of it, I'm sure, and know there were the 3 key things: better health, better care, delivered more efficiently and cost effectively. So prevention, we need to get serious about it. 20% of our population smoke, 1/3 of people drink too much, 2/3 of people are either overweight or obese. Within the next few years, obesity is set to overtake cancer as the leading cause of death in our country for an entirely preventable condition. It's shocking. So you've seen a sugar tax and announcements around that. You're going to see us doing a number of other things, working with Public Health England. You've heard about the new models of care and the vanguards and the SDPs and the accountable care systems. The whole world is moving in the same direction at the moment in care around that. And then our funding gap, which you've seen spoken about, £22 billion, all sorts of things happening around that at the moment with the reorganisation, but we can't, more of the same isn't going to work. So all that is going on. And then this has happened. This is the bit I really love. So I feel, like I always loved inventing things and seeing great things, and all the technology and things going on to deliver what I call the personalised and empowered health and care revolution. So how is the omics? How is not just the genome, but the metabolome, the microbiome, the proteome, how your genes are expressed, your exposome, which we now know is responsible for about 3/4 of the disease you'll suffer from ultimately. Data analytics, machine learning, M-health, advanced tech, but social inclusion and networking as well. And moving from patient care, so sick models of care, to well models of care, including our whole population. Why do we exclude the healthy population from designing healthcare? We need to bring them into it. So I thought what I would do is, one of the great joys of my job is the world beats its way to the door of NHS England to show us the latest, greatest things. And as far as I'm aware, I'm the only clinician that covers everything in the whole system. And so therefore, in the last 3 years, I've met more than 1,500 companies who've come and pitched to me with various ideas, and I've assessed them. And there are some real crackers. So I thought I would share with you some of the really good things going on. So looking at omics and that space around there, you'll all be familiar with 23andMe, which has come on and doing really well. But people think it's more entertainment, really, and the information it provides than anything that may be medically useful. But actually, someone's got to make a start in that way. And then you've got Promethease, which, if you're familiar, for about another $10 or so, you can have your 23andMe or other samples then reanalyzed. But again, what useful data does it give you? But if you go to the United States and you start looking at what they're doing at Mount Sinai in New York, where they've screened the whole genomes of 30,000 people who are on their records, and now they're applying that with data analytics to their electronic patient record system, trying to make analytics around that and predictions around that. But the problem in the United States is because they're all siloed in their nature, they don't share that outside of their system. And that's one advantage we have in the NHS, is we're a unified system and we can share our data. Sure, we're going to hear about the great work of Genomics England and what they're doing around the 100,000 genome project at some point today. Lots of other companies doing things. The microbiome, wow, there's going to be an explosion in the way your body is covered in bacteria and how your genes affect that. And we know that affects a number of disease processes. More and more we're discovering about that, particularly around inflammatory bowel disease, but a whole range of other things at the moment, including kidney stones, actually, as a urologist. An Israeli startup, Media Early Sign, doing data analytics, not just including aspects of your genome, but also how your genes are expressed and the features that come out of them, looking at your chemical pathology databases and all those things. And perhaps one of the largest examples of trying to exploit in the commercial world your genome has been the Human Longevity Project by Craig Ventnor and Peter Diamandis in the United States. So they raised over $350 million to set up what looks like a Hollywood institute. You go there, And for, I think it's now $20,000 you pay to go there. And you go along, you have your whole genome screened, have a whole body MRI and a full assessment. And they try and predict what's going on with you. And it's been a difficult struggle for them. And in America, they're always pioneers, and they should be applauded for that. Because trying to work out they're trying to boil the ocean, take your whole genome and discover things from that. But is that going to be the thing that works financially in business? And it's not clear at the moment, but at least they're making a stab at it, and it's the best effort on the planet that I've seen. So among data analytics and artificial intelligence and machine learning, it seems so intangible, so far off, doesn't it? And it was Douglas Adams who wrote The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy back in the 1980s, who came up with Deep Thought, the computer who would be able to calculate the meaning of the universe and life and everything. And this computer took up a whole planet. It was so one of our foremost scientific sort of thinkers and thought leaders at the time designed this big computer. And of course, he focused down on the problem of translation and said it's going to be impossible that he could foresee in the future for a computer to be ever able to translate. So he developed an organism called the Babel fish, which was a little thing you stuck in your ear, and it would translate any language from across the galaxy into your native language. Because it just wasn't conceivable that technology would develop to the level of Skype, which now offers 5 real-time live language translations for free. So the advances in 3 years ago, I couldn't have put this slide up because it hadn't happened. But the advances in machine learning that are going on are moving so fast now and starting to impact things. So I use this, and I use Google Translate when I'm sitting in the clinic. It's not approved, but it's better than nothing when I can't get a translator. What other aspects of machine learning are going to start impacting our lives? Well, we're going to see. We've got companies like DeepMind working just up the road here, looking at how they can work with radiologists and ophthalmologists at the moment in trying to make sort of medics bionic, allow them to do more, really. And then there are companies, when I'm over in America, I get the privilege of going to Google and Microsoft and other places. So Verily used to be Google Life Sciences and now spun out. And what they're doing is they're bringing whole personalised solutions. So I think personalised medicine has moved beyond just your genome. I think it's moved to your whole health and care package. And that's what the big companies are doing. So they've got one stream in diabetes and one in mental health, where it is going to be a whole package of services they bring together. So they've announced a partnership with Dexcom with their little wearable sensor, teamed it up with some insulin pumps, working with streams on patient pathways and DeepMind, and they're going to bring together a whole package from a digital healthcare platform right through to managing every aspect of your diabetes. And they're planning to launch something later this year in that, and I think we need to watch the space for that. And of course, I couldn't leave out urologists. I am a urologist, and I thought, what do urologists do in personalised medicine? So at the start of creation, that moment of conception, you can now do a semen analysis on your smartphone. So that's the only bit of technology I'm aware of where urology crosses it. So Track you can buy on Amazon for £100. Evangio is a startup that's come out of Dubai, actually Germany and Dubai. But actually it was Harvard, a Harvard professor in March this year, 3D printed from his lab for $5, a little kit that you clip on with an app you develop. Why is it that you can't do a home test? Like we do home pregnancy tests, but isn't it really important for 1 in 10 of our population at least? Couldn't you, rather than having to go to an NHS facility, have this done at home? So this stuff is coming. It's going to be really disruptive. $5 printed at home yourself and a little app to download it and give you a WHO semen analysis report. So, but the problem is not in all these new ideas, it's in escaping from the old ones, which ramify for those of us brought up, as most of us have been, into every corner of our minds. Now, that's the economist Keynes in 1935 in his book, but it's true. That describes for me surgical training and practice and everything I have been through as a surgeon. How do I stop doing the things that once served us so well and adopt the new things now? The new things are great, but we need to stop the things that once served us well. But of course, as doctors, we are the innovators. We are the leaders of healthcare. We rapidly adopt change. And I thought I would show you how wrong that statement is. So 5,000 years ago in ancient Egypt, if you look at the hieroglyphics, you will find the first presentation of a doctor's bag. Then 4,500 years later, I found in Arabic text, when I was researching for this slide, that picture. And I would challenge you to spot the difference between those. Other than 4,500 years have passed, What's the difference and advance in the bag that cutters, scrapers, graspers, gougers, all the same things? 100 years ago then, from the Wellcome collection, we've added a bag, a stethoscope, sphygmomanometer, an ophthalmoscope, but we've still got all the same manual physical tools that we've had for 5,000 years. And as recently ago as the turn of the millennium, still a very analog system. We've added alcohol gel and some gloves, but we haven't really changed a great deal. And what we're seeing happen across the planet now is sector after sector being disrupted by industry. I really think that's about to happen to healthcare. So what I think has happened now is more technology available on this slide directly to patients to empower them to take a greater role in the health. You're always going to need doctors. Patients always want that role. They want to give something to their doctor, their medical practitioner, their worries, their anxieties, their concerns. We're never going to remove that. But actually, we were the gatekeepers to technology, and now industry are disrupting that. So these are just a selection of ideas. How am I doing for time? Okay, for a minute. Of some of the things I get exposed to, I'll pick just one or two of them. Things I love. If you look at connected devices, Proximy, I love. It's one of our clinical entrepreneur startups. This is augmented reality glasses. So you put these glasses on, and it will bring you an avatar of whichever medic you choose on the planet to come and stand next to you. So you could be on an aeroplane, you could be on the front line in Afghanistan, you could be in a prison, or you could be in a mentoring situation in an operating suite where you want the world's leading surgeon to mentor you from his office in London or California or whatever it is, or you're in the third world, an emerging economy, and you want some surgical advice. You put the glasses on and you've got a 3D virtual avatar with you. Wow, amazing. Clinic Cloud is a little stethoscope that came out of 2 junior doctors in Australia. This is a Wi-Fi stethoscope that has an algorithm that's more sensitive and specific than a doctor listening to your chest. So we can disrupt chest examinations down to healthcare assistance in nursing homes. Someone's feeling off their food, they've not eaten well, you can place this on their chest. Is everything normal? You get a green light. Amber, give the GP a call. Red, get the GP in to come and see the patient and think about some antibiotics or further assessment. Platforms and condition-specific apps, so many. My Health, many of you will be familiar of, and My COPD, a fantastic platform. Nuna, I really like. I met them in Finland when I was over there in January. Wow, the cancer clinic at your fingertips. Your whole pathway from first suspicion of referral and diagnosis into hospital through to ultimate cure or discharge from hospital. And what they've shown in their first study in Finland is that in breast cancer, best practice treatment compared to best practice treatment plus the Nuna platform at 1 year led to a 20% reduction in mortality in breast cancer. Now, that was primarily because they picked up sepsis related to chemotherapy much earlier because the patients were reporting the things themselves. But it connects the patients to their nurses and their doctors. And my STP in Essex, which I'm the innovation lead for as well, are going to trial that at scale across our patients. And we're going to go with prostate cancer first because that's our biggest challenge, actually, in Essex, and then build it out beyond that. Whole range of other things. If you haven't seen Orca, the health app store, they are amazing. She's one of our mentors on our clinical entrepreneur program. Cordio, the Israeli startup app that runs in the background on your mobile phone that detects changes in the tone of your voice when you speak. First clinical trial looked at heart failure. They can predict an admission to hospital with heart failure 1 week in advance of it happening just by you talking on your mobile phone. So you can ring your mum up in the morning. She says she's feeling fine. The app says tell her to take 20 milligrams more of furosemide. Wow, amazing. Advanced portable technology. The Qualcomm Tricorder X Prize was awarded a few weeks ago, wow, to 2 companies, actually, an American one and one in Korea. But it is coming, that thing on Star Trek. It's not quite there yet in terms of looking like what they had on Star Trek, but point-of-care diagnostics is going to disrupt. We have pathology labs, spent millions of pounds building them. There's benchtop boxes are coming that are going to disrupt that down to primary care, down into the community as well to do those things. Wearable sensors, so many good ones to tell you about, and there's been a lot of hype in wearable sensors, and many of them have faded away now. But there are some really impressive things. One of the most impressive things I've seen is coming out of Nokia. It's not on the market yet. I got to visit them when I was in Helsinki in January, And they have cracked a problem that the rest of the world is trying to be solved. So I went to MIT, and they've had a number of well-funded startups that have just failed to take this forward. So a surface-mounted sensor that measures all your vital parameters. So it will do your pulse, your blood pressure with an arterial waveform, your oxygen saturation, your cardiac output, your core temperature, and your posture, lying, sitting, or standing, from a surface-mounted sensor. I just couldn't believe it when I saw it. It's what everyone's been trying to crack. And that will be here, I would think, within the next year or so. All sorts of things. You can do an ECG on your Apple Watch now with the new things, and smartphone plugins, all sorts of things happening there, whether it's an ultrasound from Philips and their Lumify device. Why spend £50,000 on an ultrasound machine? $200 a month, you can rent a probe to plug into your smartphone. And all sorts of things. This SBRI program in healthcare have supported a consultant ENT surgeon from Tunbridge Wells to develop Cupris, they're called, to develop a clip-on for your iPhone that will turn it into an ophthalmoscope or an oroscope. We're doing some amazing things in this space. But how are we training our clinicians to do all that technology I've just shown you? Some of you may have seen, some of which you won't have ever seen before, but how are we equipping the next generation of clinicians right across the board to deal with this technology and popularise that to our patients and teach them? And we weren't. So around 18 months ago, I pitched to Sir Bruce Keogh that we should, one of the things we were missing, I felt, one of the things why innovation didn't take off in the health service in England was because we ignored something. And we ignored entrepreneurs and commercial skills to teach our staff. In America, if you're an entrepreneur, you've got a startup, you're fated as a hero. In this country, you were suppressed, pushed back, you weren't encouraged. At best, you weren't encouraged. At worst, it was, you know, they tried to bury the idea. It was terrible. We said, OK, well, let's wait and see. So I got permission to launch the Clinical Entrepreneur Program, which provides mentoring and coaching, less than full-time training, advanced internships. We connect them to customers and funding and try and help find that. And importantly, education and networking events. Now, we've been running 9 months already. In year one, we appointed 103 of the nation's brightest, most disruptive young clinicians. Some of them are here today. We've had over 50 startups form either on the program or just before they came into it. It's now more than 15, actually, have raised significantly. And in fact, that should say 100K, not 10K. We've had 3 raises of £10 million from our young doctors in the first 9 months of the programme. So it's not because I'm excellent or NHS England are excellent. It's because there was an underwhelming desire. I've just unearthed something here, bubbling away under the ground in our junior doctors at a time when junior doctors have been under so much pressure and it's been so difficult. And they've come forward and done this. And so impressed have the Finnish government been. I've met their Cabinet Secretary and their Health Permanent Secretary and various others, and they are going to launch a Finnish version of the Clinical Entrepreneur Programme in partnership with NHS England in the autumn. So I thought I'd give you a quick example of some of our young entrepreneurs. I'll show year 2. We've just appointed another 73 on the programme. We've got about another 40 doctors waiting for interviews. We're opening up to clinical scientists, importantly. As soon as the election's over, we're going to advertise for those, and dentists. And then in the autumn, it'll be nurses, allied health practitioners, pharmacists. Left anyone out? No, I think that's it as well. These are 2 of our poster boys coming forward in the next year's round. Orthopaedic surgeons from Northwick Park. Don't they look like orthopaedic surgeons? So what have they done? They've set up a little company called eTrauma. It's fantastic. What the problem they found was they were on a weekend on call at Northwick Park and they'd had 32 admissions. The whiteboard was filled, and the board next door to it, and the portable board with the admissions for that day. And at 7 o'clock in the morning, having been up all weekend, they went to grab a cup of coffee ready for the trauma meeting, which is the assault where all the consultants come and criticise you, for those of you who haven't done orthopaedics. To their horror, when they got back in the room, the cleaner was dutifully cleaning the whiteboard down. All the admissions from the weekend lost. You just know. So they said, we can't have this anymore. So they developed a little platform which had machine learning and natural language processing in it. So the orthopaedic surgeons could type in what the condition was, and the entry was it would be automatically extracted and coded onto the system. And they've just upgraded that now to a real-time data analytics system, so you can look at it live across your system. So, in the first 3 years of the system, they put 10,000 patients through it at Northwick Park and the groups around there. But just by using this system, a little bit of software sitting on your thing, they were able to get a 30% increase in the total patients per month and a 13% increase in throughput in inpatients. So same resource, but better outcomes. But then, They noticed in 2013 that waiting times were just going up. They went back to the system and looked at it and analysed it and found actually it's upper limb surgery. We don't have enough capacity. They employed an upper limb surgeon. We don't have trauma lists on a Saturday and a Sunday. They created them. And what they found, they were admitting too many ankles and wrist fractures. So they changed all their pathways and got a 42% decrease in length of stay and a 55% decrease in inpatient waiting times for surgery off the back of the information gathered from this platform. Now, it's in 7 hospitals at the moment. And these guys, this program is about to die. They're orthopedic surgeons. They're trying to be consultants. They don't have the skills or the knowledge to take this forward. And they came to me and said, help, join the Clinical Entrepreneur Program. So we're going to give them a mentor. We're going to teach them some commercial skills, introduce them to funders to say, actually, can we turn this into a business, perhaps that we can sell to the rest of the world as well? It's great if the NHS adopts it too, because if we make this sustainable in a business sense, and we shouldn't be afraid of that, then not only can we grow our economy, generate more tax revenue to pay for our health service, but also we can make a difference to our patients getting first-hand innovation. So how do we scale up innovation? I know I'm running out of time. One of the things I was taught, so one of my mentors at NHS England is Noel Gordon, who's one of our non-executive directors, and he's been really supportive of me, and I spent a week in America with him late last year. And he taught me this expression. He said, Tony, if you want to make things work in the NHS, it's all about trains that are leaving the station. You need to get on board one. You need to make sure you are aligned with the key priorities of NHS England, work out who the directors are who are leading it, find out what their pain points are, and make sure the project or the program that you are doing and delivering is actually going to help them with their workload, and then you're likely to make a success and get it done. So I repurposed and redesigned the Clinical Entrepreneur Program to make sure all of our entrepreneurs are aligned to dealing with problems of the senior leadership team of NHS England. So we now have a reverse pitching session every time at the pit stop sessions we hold, where a senior leader from the NHS, Noel's come and gone, we've got Celia Ingham-Clark coming along to the next one, to tell us what their wicked problems are, the terrible issues that they're facing. Come and tell them to the brightest pool of young, disruptive minds from across the country that the NHS has to offer, and see what we can do. And Noel brought the problems at NHS Digital to us last time, and he went away with some solutions they hadn't even been thinking of around some really complex areas. Of course, we are doing other things, because it's great to talk, and I think the Clinical Entrepreneur Program is action. It's not just new thinking, we need new action around that. But our chief executive's been busy as well with coming up with new ways of doing things, and announced at the Confed last year we were going to have this innovation and technology tariff. And everyone said, well, I wasn't sure it was going to happen and this and that, but here we are a year later, and it is an amazing success. So we went for a call for the latest, greatest things that people wanted adopted. 6 of them have gone on the tariff this year, and now what's happening is, largely speaking, the procedure is that the local STP or commissioners decide what they want to buy. They go and order it, and the company send the bill to NHS England who pay it. That's largely how it works. It's like amazing. And then we're going to be going out for another call soon, looking more and more at primary care innovations. So I think this is another element, another chip off the block to helping things get taken up. So I'm nearly there. I love this quote. Abraham Lincoln, middle of the American Civil War, 1862. A really tough, dark time for the United States. Everyone was under pressure. It was awful. And he said, the dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate to the stormy present. The occasion is piled high with difficulty, and we must rise with the occasion. As our case is new, so we must think anew and act anew. We must disenthrall ourselves, and then we shall save our country. If I took country out and put healthcare system in that place, and you went to anyone on the front line in the NHS, they would say to you, there's so much difficulty in front of me, I just can't see the way through. So I think we have to, the things that worked in the past that served us well once don't serve us so well anymore. We need to disenthrall ourselves. We need new thinking and new action. And then I think we can deliver a health service that's sustainable through at the point of delivery for generations to come. And my last slide. This has happened before in history, what we're about to face in my view. This is the printing press 500 years ago that disrupted and democratized education. It took the printed word, which was handwritten by priests for kings and rulers of countries, and gave it to the general population. While some of the technology I showed you, some of the advances, some of the things in genomics of how it could transform our lives. I think over the next 5 to 10 years is going to disrupt the way medicine's gone or is handled. I think doctors will not be the gatekeepers anymore of healthcare. I think they will be the navigators. They will be the people who we go to help us understand our journey as we go through the system. And that's it. Thank you very much.